In the autumn of 2005, Hurricane Katrina destroyed roughly 70% of the home gardens across southeastern Louisiana. Among those gardens were generations, old plantings of a vine that Cajun and Creole families had been cultivating for over a century. A man named Israel Thibodeau, in the small town of Carincro, walked through the wreckage of his property after the storm and found a few intact tubers from his vine still buried in the soil. He replanted them. Within 2 seasons, his garden was producing again. Within 5 seasons, he was shipping seed pods to households across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas to help neighbors restore the variety they had lost. In 2013, Louisiana State University formally renamed the entire white-fruited variety after him. The plant Mr. Thibodeau saved is one of the most productive food crops in the Western Hemisphere. A single mature vine produces between 60 and 80 fruits per season, along with edible leaves, shoots, flowers, tubers, and seeds. 5 separate foods from one plant. Fruits that store for 6 months wrapped in newspaper. A vine that returns every year from its own roots. If you are new here, subscribe. The chayote was already an established crop when the Aztec Empire was a young political project. Archaeological evidence places its domestication at roughly the 12th century BCE in the highlands between southern Mexico and Guatemala. By the 8th century CE, Mayan farming communities were cultivating it across multiple ecological zones, on highland terraces above 1,500 meters, in lowland garden plots, along stream banks, intercropped with maize and beans. The Aztec name for the plant, Chayote, appears in Nahuatl language documents from the 14th and 15th centuries, describing it as one of the staple crops grown in the floating Chinampa gardens around Tenochtitlan. Now, the title of this video promises: a standard tomato vine in optimal conditions produces between 10 and 15 pounds of fruit per season, roughly 80 to 100 individual tomatoes from a single plant. The vine itself dies at the end of the season. A new tomato must be planted every spring from seed, hardened off, staked, fed with nitrogen, defended against blight, and harvested within a 4 to 5 month productive window before frost ends the season. A mature chayote vine, growing in the same climate where tomatoes grow, produces between 60 and 80 individual fruits per season. Then it does it again the following year, and the year after that. A well-established chayote vine on a backyard arbor in Louisiana, Florida, or Southern California can remain productive for 15 to 20 years from a single original planting. Some Mexican home gardens have continuous chayote production stretching back 4 or 5 generations on the same root system. The tomato wins on per fruit yield in a single season. Chayote wins on every other measurable trait that matters for food security. Storage is where the comparison becomes lopsided. A vine-ripened tomato lasts 5 to 7 days at room temperature before significant decay begins. A green tomato picked early can be held 2 to 3 weeks under careful conditions. A chayote fruit, picked at proper maturity, wrapped in newspaper and held at 55 degrees Fahrenheit in a basement or unheated pantry, keeps in edible condition for 4 to 6 months. This is not a marginal difference. This is the difference between a fresh food that requires immediate consumption and a fresh food that can carry a household through an entire winter. There's a specific reason chayote stores so well. The fruit's exterior is a thick, waxy, water-resistant skin that the plant evolved to protect a single internal seed. That seed, in fact, will often germinate while still inside the intact fruit during long storage, a feature that allowed pre-Columbian farmers to plant chayote simply by burying the entire fruit in the ground in spring. You do not save seeds from chayote. You save the fruit itself. When you plant the whole thing. Subscribe if you want more of these comparisons. The chayote fruit is the famous part. The rest of the plant is the part most people have never heard about. Modern grocery stores in the United States stock the fruit when they stock it at all. Standard supermarket chayote in California, Texas, and Louisiana sells for about $1.50 to $2.50 per pound. A single fruit weighs around 8 to 10 ounces. Most American consumers who buy chayote will eat the fruit and have no idea what is happening underneath the soil. The chayote vine produces underground tubers that can reach the size of a large potato by the 2nd or 3rd year of growth. The Aztec word for these tubers is chinchayote. In Mexican home cooking, chinchayote is treated as a starchy root vegetable, boiled, fried, mashed, or roasted in the same ways a potato or sweet potato would be. A 100-gram serving of chinchayote contains roughly 79 calories, mostly from complex starch. It contains noticeably more vitamin C than a potato does on a per-gram basis, along with measurable amounts of potassium, magnesium, and dietary fiber. A mature chayote vine produces between 5 and 10 kilograms of tubers per year, in addition to the above-ground fruit. Then the leaves. The young leaves and tendrils of the chayote vine are eaten as a green vegetable across most of Asia, Latin America, and parts of the Caribbean. In the Philippines, chayote leaves are a standard ingredient in a soup called tinola. In China, the shoots are stir-fried with garlic and called long shukai, which translates to dragon whiskers. A 2019 nutritional analysis published in the journal Food Chemistry documented that chayote leaves contain approximately twice the protein per gram of standard cultivated spinach, along with significantly higher levels of beta-carotene and folate. A single mature vine produces roughly 2 kilograms of harvestable young leaves per growing season. The flowers and the seeds are also edible, though they are minor components of overall yield. What you have, when you grow a chayote vine, is a single perennial plant producing 5 distinct food categories simultaneously, roughly 80 fruits per year, 5 to 10 kilograms of starchy tubers per year, 2 kilograms of nutritious leaves per year, a continuous supply of edible shoots through the growing season, and a single self-saving seed inside every fruit harvested. The 1981 National Academy of Sciences report on underutilized tropical crops ranked chayote among the highest priority underused species, specifically because of this multi-output yield profile. The same panel called the winged bean a supermarket on a stalk. They could just as accurately have called chayote a supermarket on a vine. The reason chayote did not become a major American crop follows a pattern visible across most of the foods covered on this channel. Chayote was widely grown in the American South before the Civil War. Louisiana, Florida, Alabama, and parts of Texas all had established chayote plantings by the 1850s and 1860s. The disruption of the Civil War devastated Southern agriculture broadly, and chayote cultivation was among the casualties. In 1890, American agricultural promoters made a deliberate attempt to reintroduce the crop under the marketing name vegetable pear, a softer, more market-friendly term that emphasized the fruit's pear-like shape and avoided unfamiliar Spanish-language names. The marketing campaign reached specialty markets, but never broke into mainstream American agriculture. By 1920, chayote was back to being a regional Louisiana crop, absent from most American grocery shelves outside the Gulf Coast. What is unusual is that across the Pacific in the same era, chayote was rapidly becoming a staple in Australia, the Philippines, China, and India. Australian backyard gardens by 1900 frequently included a choco vine on a fence, a household practice that continued through the 20th century. In Asia, chayote integrated quickly into existing stir-fry and soup traditions. The plant succeeded everywhere it was given basic cultural visibility. It only struggled where consumers had no historical reference for it. The medical research on chayote is where the story takes a more recent turn. Chayote shows measurable activity across several metabolic pathways that pharmaceutical research has been investigating for decades. The most consistent finding involves blood sugar. A 2012 clinical trial published in Plant Foods for Human Nutrition examined the effects of chayote consumption on older adults with type 2 diabetes. Participants who incorporated chayote into a controlled dietary intervention showed measurable reductions in fasting blood glucose compared to a matched control group. The mechanism appears to involve specific phenolic compounds in the fruit pulp that inhibit alpha amylase activity, the same enzyme inhibition pathway that some prescription diabetes medications target. Cardiovascular markers also responded. A 2014 study published in Pharmacognosy Research documented decreases in total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and triglycerides in animal models given chayote extract over an 8-week period. The compounds responsible appear to include flavonoids and saponins, concentrated in the fruit skin and seed. The 2008 paper in Journal of Ethnopharmacology identified antihypertensive compounds that produced measurable blood pressure reductions in experimental hypertension models. This is consistent with long-standing traditional use across Mexican, Caribbean, and Brazilian folk medicine, where chayote leaf tea has been prescribed for high blood pressure for at least 300 years. Modern pharmacological testing has consistently confirmed that the traditional preparations contain bioactive compounds operating through the same general pathways as several prescription medications. This is the same pattern we have seen with most of the foods covered on this channel. The folk knowledge was not wrong. It was simply not formally measured until specialized laboratories started asking questions. Beyond medicine, the basic nutritional profile is solid. A 100-gram serving of fresh chayote contains approximately 19 calories, making it one of the lowest calorie fresh vegetables available. It provides about 8 milligrams of vitamin C, 0.5 milligrams of vitamin B6, significant amounts of folate, fiber, potassium, and trace minerals including manganese, copper, and zinc. The amino acid profile is unusually complete for a gourd family vegetable. A 100-gram serving contains measurable amounts of all 9 essential amino acids, albeit in modest absolute quantities. For practical eating, the comparison with tomato becomes clear. A tomato delivers more concentrated flavor, more lycopene, and a higher acidity that defines a specific category of cooking. Chayote delivers a milder taste, greater storage stability, year-round availability from a single vine, multiple food products from one plant, and a pharmacologically active profile that tomatoes do not match. The two crops are not actually substitutes for each other in cooking. What chayote offers is a complement that fills a specific gap, the gap of fresh, mild-flavored vegetable available throughout the winter when tomatoes are months out of season. For most American households, this gap is currently filled by imported produce, shipped thousands of miles, stored in cold chain logistics, and delivered at considerable energy cost. A single chayote vine in the backyard fills the same gap with no shipping, no refrigeration, and no recurring purchases. The practical reality of growing chayote depends almost entirely on climate. The plant tolerates frost poorly. Vine tops will die back at the first hard freeze, and prolonged temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit can kill the entire root system. This restricts true perennial cultivation to USDA hardiness zones 8 through 11, roughly the southern third of the continental United States, plus all of Hawaii. Inside that zone, chayote is one of the easier plants to grow. It tolerates a wide range of soil conditions. It accepts both full sun and partial shade. It does not require fertilizer in reasonably fertile soil. It does not suffer from major pest pressure in most regions. The starting material is the fruit itself. A whole, mature chayote fruit purchased at a Latin American or Asian grocery store will sprout if the seed inside has begun to germinate. Visible as a small green shoot pushing through the wider end of the fruit. Plant the entire fruit. Half buried, sprout and up in early spring after the last frost, in well-drained soil with access to a fence, trellis, or sturdy support structure. Provide a robust support. Chayote vines reach 40 to 50 feet at maturity and produce significant weight and fruit on the upper canopy. A chicken wire-covered fence works, a pergola works, 2 stout posts with a heavy crosswire works. Water consistently through the establishment year. Once the root system reaches 3 or 4 feet deep, the plant becomes substantially drought-tolerant and can usually survive on natural rainfall in most southern climates. The first year produces a modest harvest, usually 10 to 20 fruits. The second year typically produces 40 to 50. By the third year, a healthy vine on good support produces 60 to 80 fruits annually, along with substantial leaf and tuber harvests. Harvest the fruits when they are firm, fully formed, and roughly 4 to 6 inches long. Pick before the seed begins to germinate inside the fruit. For storage, wrap each fruit individually in newspaper. Place in a single layer in a cardboard box or shallow crate. Store at 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit in a basement, garage, or unheated pantry. Check the box monthly. Discard any fruit showing soft spots, mold, or visible decay. Properly stored, the bulk of a fall harvest will remain firm and edible through the following March or April, giving most temperate zone households fresh garden vegetables for nearly 6 months beyond the natural harvest window. For colder climates, outside Zone 8, chayote can still be grown as an annual. Plant the whole fruit in pots in early spring, move outdoors after frost, harvest before first autumn frost, and accept that the plant will die at the end of the season. A single annual vine in Zone 6 or 7 will still produce 30 to 50 fruits in a long, warm summer, substantially less than the perennial version, but enough to justify a single corner of an annual vegetable garden. For cooking, the fruit is treated like a cross between zucchini and a firm potato. Peel, if desired. The skin is edible but slightly waxy. Slice in half, remove the flat central seed if it has hardened, and proceed as you would with summer squash. Sauté with onion and garlic, roast with olive oil and salt, layer into casseroles or stews. Stuff and bake. The Cajun preparation called merleton stuffed with shrimp and breadcrumbs is a classic Louisiana holiday dish. The flavor is mild, faintly sweet, and absorbs surrounding spices and aromatics readily. The texture stays slightly firm even after extended cooking, which makes it useful in long simmered dishes where other gourds become mushy. One small note for handling. The cut surface of fresh chayote releases a small amount of mildly sticky sap that can cause a temporary numbing or itching sensation on sensitive skin. The compound is a natural plant defense mechanism and is fully neutralized by cooking. If you find your hands feel odd after peeling chayote, rinse with cool water and the sensation passes within a few minutes. Wearing thin gloves during preparation eliminates the issue entirely. For a household with a fence, an arbor, or a sunny corner of a yard in the southern United States, a single chayote vine is one of the highest return food investments available in temperate zone agriculture. One planting. 20 years of harvest, 5 different foods, 6 months of storage from a single autumn pick. The plant has been doing this for almost 3,000 years. The only thing that has changed is whether anyone in your neighborhood knows what it is. If you live anywhere south of central Tennessee, buy a single chayote at a Mexican grocery store this week, plant it in May, and you will be harvesting your first fruits by October. Next week, a leafy green that survives sub-zero winters contains more iron than spinach and is dismissed as a roadside weed across most of North America, even though European farmers cultivated it for over 1,000 years. Subscribe so you do not miss it.